The past, like a shadow, follows us wherever we go, whispering tales of what once was. It is an illusion we cling to, believing it shapes our present and dictates our future. Yet, what we fail to see is that the past is not a master, but a fleeting image that exists only in our minds. The true strength of the Stoic lies not in the ability to dwell on what has passed, but in the wisdom to understand what is within our grasp. We are not defined by the weight of yesterday, but by the choices we make today. In this journey, we will explore how Stoicism grants us the power to free ourselves from the chains of the past. It teaches us that only by letting go of what has gone can we truly embrace what is to come. Through reason, discipline, and the practice of acceptance, we can shed the burdens that weigh upon our hearts and find peace in the present moment. To be a Stoic is to accept that the past has no dominion over us, and only by releasing its hold can we attain the freedom to live fully, with clarity and purpose. Let us step forward, not as prisoners of time, but as masters of our own destiny. Understanding the burden of the past. The past, much like a heavy cloak, drapes itself over us, often without our consent. It lingers in our thoughts, reminding us of mistakes, lost opportunities, and moments we wish could be undone. We often carry these burdens not because they are necessary, but because we have allowed them to define us. The Stoic understands that the past is a fleeting moment that cannot be relived or altered, yet many of us continue to carry its weight, as though it were a present reality. To understand the burden of the past, we must first confront its nature and recognize how it clings to us in ways we do not realize. What is the past but a series of events that have already occurred, fleeting moments that are forever gone? When we fixate on the past, we are not embracing reality as it is, but rather constructing a narrative that serves no purpose other than to imprison our minds. This fixation, however, is not something that is naturally bestowed upon us. It is a habit we form, a response to suffering or loss. We become attached to the idea that the past can shape our future, that it holds some kind of power over us, and that it is something we must revisit time and time again. But the Stoic view is clear: the past is no longer within our control. Once a moment has passed, it is forever gone, and all that remains is our perception of it. The truth is, the past only has power over us if we continue to give it that power. It is we who choose to remember, we who choose to reflect, we who choose to allow it to shape our emotions. What then are we truly holding on to? What is it that keeps us bound to a time that no longer exists? To understand the burden of the past, we must first recognize its insidious influence on our lives. For some, the past is a source of regret, a place where they relive mistakes and missed opportunities. It can manifest in the form of guilt, shame, or anger. We look back with a sense of sorrow, wishing that we had made different choices, taken different paths, or acted in ways that might have led to a different outcome. This is the burden of regret, a constant reminder of what might have been. For others, the past is a place of glory, a time when life seemed simpler, happier, or more fulfilling. They cling to memories of triumph and joy, holding on to a sense of nostalgia that colors their present reality. The Stoic would remind us that both regret and nostalgia are distractions from the present moment. Both are illusions. The past, whether filled with pain or pleasure, is an aspect of life that is forever beyond our reach. It is an area over which we have no control. To live in the past is to live in a realm of imagination, disconnected from the only reality that matters, the present. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus often reminded his students that the events of our lives are not in our control, but how we respond to them is. The past is a series of events that have already happened. They cannot be changed, altered, or undone. What remains, then, is how we choose to interpret those events. This is the power. We have the power to choose how we respond to our own memories, how we shape our understanding of the past, and how we allow it to influence our lives. The burden of the past can also manifest in the form of attachment to things or people that are no longer with us. Perhaps a loved one has passed away, or a friendship has ended. We hold on to the memory of what was, not realizing that by clinging to these attachments, we are only prolonging our own suffering. The Stoic teaches us that attachment leads to dependence, and dependence leads to vulnerability. It is through the act of letting go that we free ourselves from the chains of attachment, and thus free our minds to live in the present moment. Consider the concept of letting go through the lens of the Stoic practice of virtue. Virtue, as the Stoics understood it, is the practice of living in accordance with nature in a way that is rational, self-disciplined, and emotionally resilient. When we allow ourselves to be consumed by the past, we are not acting in accordance with nature. We are acting against our own well-being. The natural state of the mind is to be in the present, focused on what is within our control. The past, with all its regrets and attachments, is outside of our control and thus should not be allowed to govern our actions or thoughts. There is wisdom in the realization that the past is a burden only when we allow it to be. It is not something we must carry, nor something we must constantly revisit. The past is a shadow, a fleeting memory that holds no real substance. What truly matters is how we choose to live in the present, how we choose to respond to what is before us, and how we choose to shape our future. In Stoic thought, the concept of living according to nature involves the understanding that our lives are governed by forces beyond our control. The events of the past, therefore, are part of this natural order. They have occurred and cannot be changed. The Stoic response to the past, then, is one of acceptance and understanding. It is a recognition that while the past may have shaped us, it does not define us. We are not prisoners of our past. We are free to choose how we respond to it. To let go of the past, we must first understand that it is not a force that controls us, but an aspect of our lives that we must accept. We must stop holding on to the past as if it was something that could provide us with meaning or purpose. The past is not where our strength lies. Our strength lies in our ability to live in the present, to respond to the challenges of life with wisdom, and to cultivate an inner peace that is unaffected by the passage of time. As we begin to understand the burden of the past, we start to see the chains that bind us. The past is not an enemy to be fought, but a reality to be accepted. In the acceptance of the past, we find the freedom to move forward, to live fully in the present, and to embrace the future with strength and resilience. The burden of the past is heavy, but it is not insurmountable. By recognizing its influence, we can begin to let it go, and in doing so, we free ourselves to live with purpose and clarity. The Stoic view on time and impermanence. Time, that ever-flowing river, moves relentlessly forward, sweeping everything in its path. The Stoics understood the fleeting nature of time, and through their teachings, we can come to comprehend the impermanence of all things. We live in a world where change is the only constant, where nothing remains as it was, and where everything is subject to the inevitable passage of time. Yet, how often do we resist this truth? How often do we attempt to hold on to moments that have passed, to people and things that are no longer with us? We fool ourselves into believing that time can be controlled, or that we can preserve a moment forever. But the reality is that time is beyond our mastery. The only thing we have is the present, and that is where the true wisdom lies. The Stoics believed that understanding the nature of time was key to living a virtuous life. Time is a force that we cannot stop, but we can choose how we spend it. In their writings, Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, and Seneca repeatedly emphasized the importance of focusing on what is within our control and not becoming ensnared by the things we cannot change. The past is gone, the future is uncertain, and all we truly have is the present moment. The Stoics teach us that by fully embracing the impermanence of life, we can free ourselves from the suffering that comes with clinging to what is no longer ours to control. The nature of impermanence is perhaps most clearly demonstrated in the inevitable passage of time. We all experience moments of joy, sorrow, success, and failure, but none of these moments last forever. No matter how intense or profound an experience may be, it too shall pass. Our lives are a series of fleeting moments, each one slipping away as quickly as it arrives. In understanding this, the Stoic mind cultivates detachment from the events of life, recognizing that the present moment is the only one that holds true value. To dwell on the past or worry about the future is to ignore the preciousness of the now. In this lesson, we must examine the Stoic perspective on time in relation to the past. Time, according to Stoic philosophy, is not something that can be grasped or contained. The past is gone, and though we may recall it in our minds, we cannot bring it back. There is no value in longing for what has already passed. The Stoic accepts the transitory nature of all things, including time itself. We are told by the Stoics not to regret the past, nor to become preoccupied with what might have been. The past is no more, it is a series of events that once lived are now only memories. To wish for a return to a time that has already slipped away is to live in denial of reality. Time also reminds us of the inevitability of change. The Stoic teaches that all things are in a constant state of flux. The world around us is in a continual process of becoming, and what we cling to today may be gone tomorrow. Nothing in life remains static, whether it is a relationship, an achievement, or even our own bodies. Everything is subject to the flow of time, and thus everything is temporary. This is not a truth to be feared, but one to be embraced. The Stoic perspective teaches us that in understanding the impermanence of all things, we can find peace. We do not need to fear loss because we know that loss is a natural part of the cycle of life. In fact, it is through this acceptance that we find freedom. Consider the idea of change within the context of our emotional attachments. We become attached to people, possessions, and experiences, believing that these things will bring us lasting happiness. Yet, the Stoic knows that nothing is permanent, and that attachment to external things will only lead to suffering when those things inevitably change or fade away. The Stoic teaches us that happiness does not come from the possession of external things, but from cultivating an inner peace that is independent of the passing tides of time. To be truly free is to release our attachment to things that are not permanent and to cultivate the strength to endure whatever time brings our way. The passage of time also reveals the futility of regret. Time moves in one direction, and the Stoic sees this as a great blessing. Regret, by definition, is the desire to undo something that has already been done. It is an illusion that traps us in a past that no longer exists. When we feel regret, we are attempting to rewind time, to reverse decisions that have already been made, to go back to a moment that can never be relived. The Stoic reminds us that this is not only futile, but it is also a waste of time and energy. The power of choice is in the present, not in the past. We cannot go back, but we can choose how we respond to the present moment. The only meaningful response to regret is action in the here and now, for it is the present that determines the future. In understanding the passage of time and the impermanence of all things, the Stoic sees life as an opportunity to practice virtue. We cannot change the past, and we cannot predict the future, but we can act with wisdom and integrity in the present. We can choose how we respond to life's challenges, how we interact with others, and how we navigate the trials that come our way. The key to mastering time, then, is not to try and hold on to it, but to make the most of it by living in accordance with nature. Time is a gift, not a possession. We do not control it, but we can choose how to use it. This is the essence of the Stoic perspective on time. The practice of accepting impermanence also frees us from the anxiety that often accompanies the future. When we focus on the present moment, we cease to worry about what lies ahead. The Stoic recognizes that while we cannot know what the future holds, we can prepare ourselves for whatever comes by living virtuously in the present. By cultivating resilience, inner peace, and wisdom, we can face the unknown with confidence, knowing that we have the strength to endure whatever time may bring. In the end, the Stoic view on time is one of acceptance, clarity, and purpose. Time is not something we can control, but it is something we can shape through our actions. By understanding that all things are impermanent, we are able to let go of our attachment to the past and free ourselves from the anxiety of the future. We live in the present, knowing that the only moment that is truly ours is the one we are living right now. Time moves ever forward, and the Stoic moves with it, accepting each moment as it comes and finding peace in the ever-flowing river of life. Epictetus and the power of control. Epictetus, one of the greatest Stoic philosophers, taught that the key to a life of virtue, wisdom, and peace lies in understanding and mastering the distinction between what is in our control and what is not. The power of control, as Epictetus saw it, is central to the Stoic way of life. To live in harmony with nature, to cultivate inner strength, and to attain true freedom, we must learn to focus our energy only on those things that are within our power and to let go of everything else. At the heart of Stoic philosophy is the understanding that we cannot control external events, the actions of others, or even our own bodies and circumstances in the grand scheme of things. What we can control, however, is our response to those events, our thoughts, our attitudes, and our judgments. It is through the mastery of this control that we can attain tranquility, no matter what happens outside of us. To Epictetus, this was the essence of freedom. The freedom to act according to reason, to remain steadfast in the face of adversity, and to cultivate an inner peace that is immune to the chaos of the world. Consider for a moment the many things in life that we often attempt to control. We try to control the behavior of others, to dictate how they should act, feel, or think. We attempt to control external circumstances, our job, our relationships, our finances, believing that if we can manipulate the outside world to our will, we will find happiness. But in doing so, we are chasing an illusion. The truth, as Epictetus taught, is that the only real control we have is over ourselves. Our desires, our actions, and our responses are the only things we truly possess the power to shape. This is a profound realization, and it is one that Epictetus repeated often in his teachings. He famously said, "Some things are up to us and some things are not up to us." This simple statement is the cornerstone of Stoic thought. To understand this is to understand the key to inner peace. If we cling to the illusion of control over what is beyond our reach, we will always be frustrated, anxious, and dissatisfied. But if we turn our focus inward to the control we do have over our thoughts and actions, we will find the freedom that Stoicism promises. The Stoics' task, then, is to focus on what is within their sphere of control. This means making wise decisions, cultivating virtue, and developing the strength to respond to the world with equanimity. It means accepting the things we cannot change, whether they be the actions of others, the state of the world, or the inevitable forces of nature, and directing our energy instead toward improving ourselves. The Stoic is not passive in this endeavor, but active in the pursuit of wisdom, courage, and self-discipline. Epictetus, in his teachings, also highlighted the importance of distinguishing between our judgments and the external events that occur. For example, when something difficult happens, a loss, a failure, or an insult, it is not the event itself that causes us distress, but our judgment of it. It is our belief that we have been wronged, or that things should have gone differently, that causes our suffering. Epictetus taught that by changing our judgments, we can change our experience. If we choose to view an event as an opportunity for growth, for learning, or for practicing resilience, we can transform it from a source of suffering into a source of strength. This understanding of control is particularly important when it comes to letting go of the past. Often we hold on to past mistakes, regrets, or losses because we believe that, if only we could have done things differently, we would have been in control of the outcome. But the Stoic teaches us that we never truly controlled the past. We never controlled the choices others made, nor the circumstances that arose. All we have ever controlled is our response to those events. Once the past has passed, it is no longer within our control. To continue to ruminate over it, to fixate on what we could have changed, is to waste our precious energy on something that is forever beyond us. Epictetus also taught that this power of control extends to how we view ourselves. We often become enslaved to the judgments of others, to the expectations of society, or to our own self-doubt. But the Stoic approach is one of self-acceptance. We must learn to control our response to the opinions of others, and instead cultivate an internal standard of virtue. When we focus on living according to our own values and principles, we stop worrying about the judgments of others. This, too, is a manifestation of the power of control, the ability to govern our own minds rather than allowing the minds of others to dictate how we feel about ourselves. The practice of self-control is at the heart of Epictetus' teachings. To be a Stoic is to practice constant self-reflection, to be vigilant over one's thoughts, and to continuously strive to improve. The true test of a Stoic is not in the face of great external adversity, but in the small, everyday moments where we must exercise control over our impulses, emotions, and desires. It is in how we respond to frustration, to disappointment, and to the ordinary challenges of life that we reveal our character. By mastering the power of control, we also master our relationship to time. As we reflect on the past, we can acknowledge it without being controlled by it. We recognize that what has happened cannot be changed, and therefore it is pointless to dwell on it. Our focus shifts instead to what we can control, how we live today, how we act in the present, and how we build our future through the decisions we make right now. The power of control also extends to our inner lives. Epictetus taught that our thoughts are ours to shape, and that we can cultivate an inner sanctuary of peace, no matter what happens externally. By choosing our thoughts, we decide how we will respond to the world. If we learn to practice control over our emotions, thoughts, and desires, we are no longer slaves to the whims of fortune. We become masters of our own experience, able to face life's trials with calm and composure. This is the core message of Epictetus' philosophy, that the only true freedom is found in the control of our own minds, our own actions, and our own responses. The external world will always be outside of our control, and the events of life will come and go as they please. But the Stoic knows that their response to those events, the way they choose to interpret and react to them, is entirely within their grasp. As we move forward, let us remember the wisdom of Epictetus. Let us strive to master our control over our thoughts and actions, to focus our energy on what is truly ours to shape, and to accept with grace what is beyond our power. In doing so, we free ourselves from the shackles of regret and anxiety, and embrace the peace that comes from living in harmony with what is within our control. The power of control, as Epictetus taught, is not a source of domination over the world, but a path to inner tranquility, a path that leads us to live fully, intentionally, and with wisdom. The Stoic practice of acceptance. The Stoic philosophy teaches us a vital and transformative lesson, the art of acceptance. This lesson, which runs deep through the writings of Epictetus, Marcus Aurelius, and Seneca, is not one of passive resignation, but of active wisdom. Acceptance is the understanding that life is not always within our control, and that the resistance we hold against things outside our sphere of influence only leads to unnecessary suffering. It is the recognition that life is filled with events, circumstances, and actions that occur independently of our desires, and that the true power lies in how we choose to respond to them. Acceptance for the Stoic is not a sign of weakness, nor is it an act of defeat. It is a powerful and proactive stance towards life's challenges, rooted in a clear-eyed recognition of the nature of reality. The world does not bend to our will. People do not behave according to our expectations. The flow of time continues unabated, and change is a constant. In this recognition, the Stoic does not rail against the inevitability of these forces, but accepts them as they are. To resist them is to waste energy fighting against the very nature of existence. To accept them is to find peace, strength, and clarity. To understand acceptance, one must first embrace the fundamental Stoic idea that we are not masters of the world around us. We do not control the actions of others. We cannot manipulate the course of events, nor can we determine when, where, or how misfortune may strike. What we can control, however, is our own response. It is in our thoughts, our emotions, and our actions that we find the power to shape our lives. The Stoic seeks not to control the uncontrollable, but to cultivate wisdom in navigating what is within their grasp. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, frequently reminds himself of this very point. He writes, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." In these words, we see the Stoic practice of acceptance in action. Whatever obstacle or challenge arises, the Stoic embraces it as an opportunity for growth, for resilience, and for virtue. This does not mean that we passively accept everything that comes our way, but rather that we meet each circumstance with a mindset of courage, wisdom, and equanimity. It is through this acceptance of the present moment, whatever it may bring, that we find our true strength. Acceptance also means letting go of expectations. We often suffer because we hold on to fixed ideas of how things should be. We imagine that life should unfold according to our desires, and when it does not, we feel disappointment, frustration, and even despair. The Stoic teaches us that such expectations are illusions. Life is unpredictable, and the more tightly we grip onto the belief that things should go a certain way, the more we set ourselves up for disappointment. Instead, we must cultivate a mindset of openness to whatever comes. By releasing our expectations, we free ourselves from the mental prison of should and must, and open ourselves to the reality of what is. In this freedom we find peace. Epictetus spoke of this in his Enchiridion, where he reminds us that it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. Here lies the essence of acceptance. Life's events, whether they are pleasant or painful, are outside our control. What we can control is our response. When we accept that we cannot control the actions of others, the course of nature, or the twists of fate, we are no longer victims of circumstance. Instead, we become active participants in our own lives, choosing how we will meet each challenge with wisdom, courage, and dignity. Let us consider a situation in which someone has wronged us. In such moments, it is easy to feel anger, resentment, and a desire for revenge. But the Stoic teaches us that such feelings are rooted in our own attachments, our own judgments about the situation. The act of acceptance is not to condone wrong actions, but to release our grip on the need for vengeance or justification. We accept that the wrong has occurred, but we do not allow it to consume us. We do not allow the actions of another person to dictate our inner peace. In this way, we free ourselves from the bondage of resentment and regain control of our thoughts and emotions. Acceptance also extends to the natural world. Nature follows its course, and we, as human beings, are part of that vast system. The Stoic accepts the inevitability of birth, aging, sickness, and death, for these are the natural processes of life. To resist these truths is to live in denial of the nature of existence. Instead, the Stoic lives in harmony with nature's rhythms, accepting that we, too, will pass from this world. This does not mean that we should not seek to live a full and meaningful life, but it does mean that we should accept the transient nature of our existence and the impermanence of all things. In doing so, we remove the fear of death from our hearts and find peace in the knowledge that all things are temporary. There is also a great wisdom in accepting our own limitations. We are not all powerful, and we are not all poor. The Stoic accepts that there are things beyond their ability to control, and that their life will be filled with trials, hardships, and difficulties. But rather than lamenting these facts, the Stoic sees them as an opportunity to practice virtue. When faced with a challenge, the Stoic asks themselves, how can I respond with courage? How can I meet this difficulty with wisdom and self-discipline? It is through these responses that we become stronger, more resilient, and more virtuous. Acceptance also frees us from the burden of regret. How often do we hold on to past mistakes, wishing we had acted differently? The Stoic teaches us that the past is beyond our control, and that regret is a form of self-torture. Instead, we should accept our past actions and learn from them. We cannot change what has already occurred, but we can use our experiences to guide our future decisions. To accept the past is to acknowledge that it is over and to focus our energy on what we can control, the present moment. In this practice of acceptance, we find the key to a life of peace and resilience. The Stoic does not waste time struggling against the inevitable. They do not expend energy on things they cannot change. Instead, they focus on what is within their power, their thoughts, their actions, and their responses. By practicing acceptance, the Stoic learns to embrace whatever comes their way, meeting each moment with wisdom, fortitude, and grace. In this acceptance, they find not defeat, but liberation, the freedom to live fully and in harmony with the flow of life. Thus, the Stoic practice of acceptance is not one of passivity, but of active engagement with life as it is. It is not about resigning oneself to suffering, but about embracing the opportunity to grow, to learn, and to become more virtuous. Through acceptance, the Stoic finds peace, freedom, and the strength to face whatever life may bring. The power of presence and the moment. The present moment is all we ever truly have. The past is but a shadow of what once was, and the future is an unknown that lies beyond our reach. In this realization lies one of the most profound teachings of Stoic philosophy, the power of presence. It is the ability to live fully in the here and now, to engage with each moment without being distracted by regrets of the past or anxieties about the future. This is the art of being present, and it is at the core of Stoic thought. Epictetus often emphasized the importance of focusing on the present moment, for it is the only time over which we have true control. The past, as we know, cannot be changed, and the future is yet to unfold. Yet so many of us spend our lives trapped in these two realms, constantly ruminating over what we have lost or worrying about what might come. In doing so, we neglect the present, the only time where real action, real growth, and real peace can occur. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, frequently reminded himself to focus on the present and to not be disturbed by the noise of the world. He wrote, "Don't waste time on what you can't control. Focus on what you can influence right now in this moment." This simple yet powerful reminder is one of the key tenets of Stoicism. Life is lived in the present. The decisions we make, the actions we take, and the mindset we cultivate are all happening right now. Therefore, it is only in this moment that we can make the choice to act with wisdom, virtue, and purpose. When we are present, we are free from the shackles of the past and the future. We are not burdened by past mistakes, regrets, or lost opportunities. We are not consumed by the fear of what might happen tomorrow, next week, or in years to come. Instead, we are here, fully engaged with the task at hand, living with intention and clarity. This is the way of the Stoic, immersed in the present, unaffected by what is beyond their reach, and devoted to what is within their control. To live fully in the present is to let go of the distractions that pull us away from the now. In a world that constantly demands our attention, from the endless stream of news to the clamor of social media to the pressures of our daily lives, cultivating presence becomes an act of discipline and focus. It is the ability to quiet the noise, to tune out the distractions, and to center our attention on what matters most. The Stoic is not swayed by the superficial events of the world, but remains steadfast, grounded in the moment. This power of presence also extends to our relationships with others. How often do we engage with others while our minds are elsewhere? We listen half-heartedly, distracted by thoughts of our own concerns, or our attention is divided between the conversation and the world around us. The Stoic teaches us to be fully present in our interactions, to listen with intention, and to give our full attention to the person before us. By doing so, we deepen our connections, practice empathy, and cultivate respect. The present moment, however, is not just a passive state of awareness. It is an active engagement with life as it unfolds. This is the Stoic's approach to be present, but to also act with purpose. Each action, no matter how small, should be performed with care and attention. Whether we are working, exercising, or simply taking a walk, the Stoic strives to be fully engaged in that activity, doing it to the best of their ability, without distraction or divided attention. In this way, even the most mundane tasks become opportunities for the cultivation of virtue. Epictetus reminds us that what is not good for the hive is not good for the bee. Every moment is an opportunity to live in accordance with our highest principles. By focusing on the present, we align ourselves with nature's design, acting with purpose and intention. This is the Stoic way, living in harmony with the natural flow of life, without resistance, without regret, and without fear of the unknown future. It is also important to recognize that the present moment is where our emotional responses are born. While we cannot control what happens to us, we can control how we respond to it in the present. If we are faced with adversity, we can choose how we view it. We can respond with anger, frustration, or resentment, or we can respond with patience, resilience, and understanding. The choice lies in the present moment. Through the practice of Stoic mindfulness, we can learn to pause before reacting, to take a moment to assess the situation, and decide on the best course of action. This is where true freedom lies, not in the ability to control events, but in the ability to control our responses to them. By staying present, we also develop a deeper sense of gratitude for life as it is. We begin to see the beauty in the ordinary moments, the simple pleasures of a quiet morning, the feel of the earth beneath our feet, the warmth of a loved one's embrace. So often we rush through life waiting for the next big thing to happen, thinking that happiness lies somewhere in the future. But the Stoic knows that happiness is not found in what comes next, but in how we experience the present. By fully engaging with the moment, we can find joy in the simplest things. The practice of presence also helps us to let go of the past and the future. When we are fully immersed in the present, we realize that the past is gone and the future has not yet come. There is nothing to be gained by clinging to what has already passed, nor by fearing what has yet to occur. All we have is now, and it is enough. The Stoic knows that in this moment we can choose how to respond, how to act, and how to live. The past is beyond us, and the future is uncertain, but the present is where we can make a difference. This mindset of presence brings with it a sense of peace. When we are free from the burden of the past and the worry of the future, we can approach each moment with clarity and calm. We no longer feel as if we are fighting against life, but instead we flow with it. In this way, we develop a sense of ease and tranquility, knowing that we are living in harmony with the world as it is. We are no longer consumed by what we cannot control, but instead we are focused on what we can, the present moment. In closing, the power of presence is a gift that the Stoic continually seeks to cultivate. It is the ability to live fully in the now, to be engaged with life as it unfolds, and to respond with wisdom and clarity to whatever comes our way. Through the practice of presence, we find the strength to face challenges, the peace to release regrets, and the freedom to live fully. It is the Stoics' way of embracing life in all its forms with grace and purpose, and in doing so, we find the key to true happiness. The discipline of letting go. One of the greatest sources of suffering in life comes from our attachment to things, people, and outcomes. We cling to the past, to possessions, to relationships, and to ambitions, all of which are transient and subject to change. The Stoic philosophy, however, teaches us the profound wisdom of letting go. It is the recognition that holding on too tightly to anything, whether it be material goods, personal successes, or even the people we love, can lead to unnecessary suffering and emotional turmoil. In the practice of letting go, the Stoic finds liberation, peace, and freedom from the inner bondage of attachment. Epictetus, in his Enchiridion, speaks of this idea when he reminds us that we are not to be enslaved by external things. He says, "Don't hanker after what you don't have, be content with what you have." In these words, we see the Stoic view of attachment. It is not that we should not appreciate what we have, or that we should avoid forming relationships, but rather that we must understand that nothing in life is permanent. The more tightly we grip onto something, the more likely we are to experience pain when it is taken from us. The Stoic teaches us to live with the awareness that all things are fleeting, and that our true happiness does not lie in the acquisition or possession of external things. Letting go, however, is not a call to apathy or indifference. It is not about withdrawing from life or detaching ourselves from the world around us. Rather, it is about understanding the nature of impermanence and learning to flow with the natural course of events. To let go is to release the need for control, to accept that we cannot hold on to the things we desire indefinitely. We are not defined by the things we own, the relationships we have, or the achievements we attain. True freedom comes when we cease to be attached to these external sources of identity and happiness. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, reflects on the nature of change, writing, "Everything we see will soon fade, but what is within us, our capacity to act with virtue and wisdom, will remain." The Stoic understands that nothing in the external world can provide lasting fulfillment. The only thing that remains constant is our ability to choose how we respond to life. We can control our actions, our thoughts, and our emotions, but we cannot control the ebb and flow of external circumstances. By letting go of our attachment to these fleeting things, we gain the freedom to focus on what truly matters: our character, our integrity, and our ability to live in accordance with virtue.